Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. And tonight's programme is a full hour long. I'll be working here at Longmeadow and then I'm off to Birmingham to join the rest of the team at Gardener's World Live. Along with Carol, Joe and Rachel, I'll be bringing you the very best of the show. There are show gardens with great ideas to take home.
Particularly love this mound where there's a tunnel going through underneath and then it's covered with wildflowers. Children, they just love it.
A floral marquee packed with inspirational planting combinations.
How about this for attention catching? Great big black hollyhocks contrast so beautifully with this glorious salvia. It's really dramatic.
And there might even be time for some shopping. But before I head off to Birmingham, I'm making sure that my roses flower for as long as possible. Keeping my tomatoes growing on the straight and narrow, and potting up some stunning agapanthus. I'm starting off by planting a number of different dahlias. Now, dahlias weren't fashionable for a long time, but I love them. They give a fantastic range of colour and texture from July right through into the first frosts. Now, in fact, the first dahlia I'm planting doesn't really have any flowers at all, at least not in this garden because it's not hot enough, but it is an astonishing plant for foliage and texture. This is a species dahlia called Dahlia imperialis. And I grew it at Berryfields actually. It's a tree dahlia and it grows 5 meters tall. So here it'll grow as tall as this hedge, and I'll put one on the other side, and that will give real structure. This plant is a dahlia in its pure wild form. Its flowers are very small and they're only produced if we have a very long hot summer. But nevertheless, hundreds of incredible flowers of every shade and form are all bred from this original plant. Of course, dahlias are fascinating plants because they were introduced from Central America by the Spanish at the same time as potatoes and tomatoes, and they were thought of as a food plant. People brought them over to eat the tubers. Now you can eat them. They won't kill you, but they're horrible apparently. I haven't tried. And they put them to one side. Oh, I don't like that. And it wasn't until the 18th century that people started to grow them and breed from them. And there was a Swedish man called Anders Dahl who started work on them, and they were named after him. Dahlia. So the dahlia we know and love actually has been bred from species plants like this, which were bought as a potential food crop. Now, of course, they're not hardy. Frost will blacken and kill this back, but the top doesn't matter because it regrows every year. So it's the tubers that we have to protect. And they're fed by the foliage and they're storing up goodness. And then I will lift that later on because I can't overwinter them in this garden. It is amazing to think that what we grow here would have been laid eyes upon by those Spanish adventurers when they found the New World. This is one of these original links with history. I guess that most people grow dahlias in this form, which are plants created from large and healthy tubers, which go into the ground and bulk out and produce a mass of flowers, completely predictable because they will be from named varieties, and they will give colour right from July through till November. Now, I've got a small selection here that will work well in the jewel garden. Some of them will be very familiar. This one, for example, is the Bishop of Llandaff. Now, I remember a time about 10 years ago when people were very snobby about dahlias and said, well, we don't really like dahlias, but we do like the Bishop, of course. But it is good. It has chocolatey, plum-coloured stems and a very ferny foliage, and the flowers are a simple, intense red with a yellow interior. And the combination works well in itself and also as part of a border. Another one I particularly like is this one, which is Arabian Night. And that's got green foliage, much more robust, but very intense wine-coloured, slightly incurving flowers. Both of them superb for the jewel garden. So I'm going to take these to the jewel garden to plant out. And if I can get these in too, we're doing well. If those fall off, I'm going to look really stupid. Now here I am with a barrel full of dahlias and various places to put them in. The important thing is that they work in with the garden, but also work for dahlias. So I've got a few obvious spots that I can plonk them in. I know the colour's going to work because I've picked them right. And I've left that area for a dahlia, but I'll balance it on the other side. And when choosing suitable places for dahlias, the soil's got to be good. They do like rich soil. They respond much better to a well-composted, nice, rich, well-drained soil. So if you've got a sandy conditions, beef it up with some compost. And also they want sunshine, but not scorching heat, or scorching bright sunshine anyway, because the flowers can fade. And the final thing about their positioning is deadheading, because you do want to be able to get to the plant to deadhead it regularly, and by regularly I mean every 2 or 3 days, because if you don't deadhead them, they put their energy into producing seed, and then you lose flowers as a result. But if you keep deadheading dahlias, they just go on and on producing more flowers. So I need to be able to reach it. Now about the furthest I can get at is in there. And other than that, most of them will be along the edge. So if I put that one there and make that the first I plant, planting them is simplicity itself. Pop them in the ground. And the main thing to do is plant them the same depth that they are in the pot, so the tubers are buried. Chuck that out there. You see this has got a nice root structure, a really healthy, good dahlia plant. So, and also make sure there's enough room for it to grow. Most dahlias get to between 3 foot and 6 foot tall, so they need room for height and also to spread. All right, let's pop that in the ground. Now, I'm not quite ready to go to the show yet, but earlier this week, Joe went along for a preview in the floral marquee.
Here at Gardeners World Live, the pressure is really on because the show opens in just a couple of days and this marquee will be packed full of visitors. Now, the exhibitors are putting final touches to their stands and detail is everything. But why go to such extraordinary lengths to make your stand, well, stand out? The best stands will win a prestigious RHS medal. But for these plants people, is a medal the icing on the cake or the cake itself? How important is a medal to you? Does it matter?
The medal, anybody that says a medal isn't important is fibbing a little bit. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if the public love it, then that's what it's about.
They're always important. And I think that, it's a recognition of what you've done over the past 6 months.
I come to a show like this, I want to go away with the best medal I can. It's not always possible because sometimes you just don't have the plants available.
Wow, you got stream in your exhibit here running through the middle. That's an incredible amount of work with the moss on the rocks, and it looks like it's been there for years.
We do always put a lot of attention to detail into our displays, but we also want to show the public what they can do in their own gardens.
Yeah.
So we like to combine different plant combinations that they can achieve at home. And we also try to arrange the plants in the right growing conditions that you would grow plants together as well in the garden at home.
So have you won golds at Gardeners World Live before?
We have. We won Silvergate last year and gold the year before. We have a lot of loyal customers and they actually get us almost as excited as we do when we win a gold medal.
Well, let's hope you get a gold this year and let's hope that the stream swings it.
I hope so.
Mike, you're always at this show. You are, of course, Birmingham City Council, so it's local to you.
Yes.
Now, you got a silver at Chelsea with a very similar display.
Yes.
You've had some feedback from the judges.
We did.
How have you tweaked that to try and get a better medal?
Well, one of the things that they raised was an issue over a tree fern which was made to look as if it had just collapsed. We did work around using it again, but we thought the best thing to do was to take it out altogether.
What does a gold or silver gilt mean to you and to everybody who works on it and the council in general?
I think it's a reflection on everybody that works within the organisation, but ultimately we would like a gold medal.
Of course, wouldn't we all?
We would.
Exhibitors are always looking for new ways to attract attention to their stands. Frank Rulka, who has travelled all the way from Germany, uses origami baskets to display his beautiful orchids. Now, when you've brought your brugmansias and daturas to Gardens World Live, beautiful scented, tender plants, but I've never quite known the difference between the two.
Datura flower up, right, and they become more of a shrub, whereas a brugmansia is more of a tree form and flowers down.
Is it as simple as that?
As simple as that.
And you haven't got a medal of any description from the RHS yet?
That's right,
Yeah.
yes, I haven't yet.
What would it mean to you to get a bronze or even a silver?
Oh, it would mean a lot, definitely. I'll be over the moon with it.
It's been really interesting chatting to some of these guys and just seeing how much work goes into these exhibits. It's about business, of course, it's about pride, but what's running through all these exhibits here is the passion for plants and the passion for gardening.
Now, my tomatoes are fine, but the basil is suffering, and I'll tell you why. It's because of moles. There's moles get in here in the bed, rummage around, and very often when I water, there's suddenly a great collapse of the soil as we hit a molehill. But what the mole does, he comes in, comes way sideways, hits the wood at the edge of the bed, and then turns right or left and just runs down under the basil. And quite often in the morning when I come in, it's as though someone's been pulling the basil out. And that darn mole is uprooting it, so it's never getting a chance to grow properly. And I don't want to kill the mole. I like the idea of them, but I really wish he'd leave my basil alone. Now, I'm gently working through the tomatoes. And I do this about once a week, looking to take out side shoots. Now, side shoots on tomatoes are actually very clear. You've got a leaf and the main stem, and the side shoot grows in the gap between the stem and the leaf at 45 degrees, and there's a good example. And you can usually just flick them off like that with your fingers and pull it off. Although, keep a sharp knife with you, because if it doesn't want to come or it's a bit bendy, then cut it cleanly rather than ripping the stem. And the reason you do that is because when you're growing a cordon, you just want one stem going up, foliage, and then trusses of fruit. Whereas if you have side shoots, it's trying to become a bush. And those side shoots are very vigorous. And although they can bear fruit, they don't bear as much fruit as if the stem is controlled. Now, if you look here at the back, I've left a side shoot, and that's no more than about 10 days old. And it's already bigger and stronger than the stem that it's shooting sideways off. And it's developing its own side shoots. And you can see that that's a problem that compounds, and very quickly you can risk breaking the main stem, it's falling, the whole thing becomes unruly. So I will cut that off. I won't attempt to break that with my fingers, but using a sharp knife, just get in there and cut that off. Now, here's a situation that everybody comes across sooner or later. You have a tomato plant that seems to have lost its leader, and you have a truss of fruit forming, and that's it. It's stopped at about a foot high. And if you left that, the fruit would ripen, and that would be it, the end of the plant. And I was just about to pinch off that side shoot, but if I leave that side shoot to grow, it will grow up past the fruit and become the leader. And the great thing about tomatoes is they are very tough, and they will regenerate. So even if you break one, or you by accident pinch off the stem rather than the side shoot, don't worry. Just let the next side shoot that forms below the break point to go on past it, and there's your new stem. When you grow tomatoes as cordons, which is to say supported by a straight cane or pole, it is important to tie them up regularly. And use a soft twine rather than anything too hard, because you don't want to cut into the tender growing tissue. Because if you don't tie them up regularly, they tend to bend and then it's hard to straighten them. And before now, I've snapped a really beautiful plant in two in trying to straighten it up to the cane. So, it's a regular job. The family vegetable garden is starting to provide produce for the table. It's based on a 4-bed rotation. One is for carrots and celery, the other for potatoes, a third for brassicas such as cabbages, and the last has peas and beans. Now, as for the beans themselves, they've been a fantastic harvest. And I like to eat broad beans when they're young. A nice broad bean, see, that's a lovely size for a broad bean. And they're really, really delicious. But if you have got a bigger bean, I've got one here, you can still get the best from it. But the secret is to peel it. You see, there's a big one. Like that. Now that, I think, is too big just to cook and eat like that. But if you parboil it and peel it, it's got this leathery skin that's very bitter. And then puree it and add a bit of oil, and you can add some garlic or a bit of pepper, and it makes a really good dip or sauce, and it's a lovely way to eat beans. But even a big one like that, if you take the skin off, it's sweet and it's lovely. So skin them. Any crops you want for the coming autumn and winter should be planned now. If you haven't planted your cabbage seeds yet, it's not too late. Once the young plants are sturdy enough, lift and transplant them to their final growing position. Now, this bed in the new vegetable garden is for brassica. I'm going to put the cabbages in here. It's had a bit of compost as a dressing, but before you plant cabbage, it is important to make sure that the soil is firm. So if you know you're going to plant them, then tread it. Just tread it down with your feet. Just firm it down like that. Because what we want to do is get the roots really firmly established. And it makes a big difference to their stability. Now these have grown well. Okay. Take a couple of plants out. And we can, where we have a little weedy one, we can ditch that. That's fine, that's a thinning. The important thing is not to let these dry out too much. So, make a hole, get this in, so it's nice and deep, and as firm as possible, so that the roots are anchoring it in, because of course cabbages get big and heavy, and they can topple over. Yet if they're in nice and firmly, they won't be stressed by moving around too much. See, I find this really exciting. Here we are, planting cabbages for the winter, a product of just a little packet of seed we had, and that continuity is great, as well as the pleasure of knowing that they're going to be well grown and we're going to be eating them fresh from the garden. You can also see how that the runner beans I put in just a week or two back have mostly germinated and are growing well. And where they haven't germinated, I can move the second one to fill a gap. Now the one thing to watch out for in summer with cabbages of any kind, or brassica of any kind, is the cabbage white butterfly. And as soon as you see that, you know it's laying its eggs. And the eggs will hatch out into caterpillars, and caterpillars will eat your brassica. Either you net it as soon as you plant them with a fine mesh net, or you do what I do, just keep an eye on it. And if you see caterpillars, just knock them off, either with a spray of water or your hand. If you do that every day, actually there's no problem at all. But you do need to be around, and you do need to do it at least every other day, if not every day. Of course, a garden like this has good moments and bad moments and good bits and bad bits, but you can always correct it. It's work in progress, and there's always next year. But if you make a show garden, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be dead right on the day. And Rachel has been to see the show gardens at Gardeners World Live as they get ready for the judges to arrive.
Well, at any flower show, the show gardens are always a really big draw with visitors. And while Gardeners World Live may not quite have the gloss or the budget of Chelsea, what it does have in spades are masses of really good inspirational ideas that would work in any garden. Now, in this garden, there's a very attractive painted metal seat, which also doubles up as a plant support, the plants going up over the arch. And in this instance, it's a honeysuckle. And then right next door, you've got an obelisk with a sweet pea threaded through it. So you're going to sit here and have this wonderful fragrance. It's just going to surround you. So if you have a seat, make sure it's scented. Well, that's one really good tip. Let me see what else I can find. We're not for a moment suggesting you should have a supermarket trolley in your garden, but you could equally well use an old wheelbarrow or a series of broken buckets and give them a second life housing a mini garden, planted with succulents and featuring lots of hidey holes for beneficial insects. Well, this garden proves that sometimes the very best thing you can do is let nature get the upper hand. In fact, if you can have a wild space like this somewhere in the garden, not only will wildlife benefit because you're creating all these habitats for things like leaving the log where it's fallen, but children, they just love it, and they discover that you don't need plastic toys in order to have fun in the garden. I particularly love this mound where there's a tunnel going through underneath, and then it's covered with wildflowers. You've got yellow rattle and oxeye daisies, clover, it's all in there. It not only looks beautiful, benefits wildlife, but this is where we nurture the next generation of gardeners. When you come to a show like this, by all means enjoy the gardens as a whole, but also take the opportunity to really explore the nooks and crannies to see what might work in your own space. Well, with so many of us working from home nowadays, this fits the bill perfectly. But I think my top tip from this garden is that if you've got to have a building of any sort, whether it's just a shed for your tools or a home office like this, then make it as attractive as it can be, because there's no place to hide it. And if you can bring the planting right up to the structure, like these cosmos and achilles sparkling in the sunshine, then so much the better. You see, the show hasn't even opened yet, and I found plenty of good ideas.
Well, I guess now is the peak of the rose season. They've been quite early this year, although hopefully they'll last a long time. The worry with early flowers of any kind is that they'll be over early. The thing about roses at this time of year is to make sure that we keep that flowering going as long as possible and we keep them healthy. This one, which I pruned on March the 11th, I remember, is complicata. It's a Gallica. And I like old roses. I like them for their style and their looseness and their voluptuousness. Beautiful. This is single flowering. It's not going to produce any more even if we cut them off, but they will produce hips. So we'll keep that as a second crop, so to speak, and just enjoy it for where it is. But at the back here, we've got a climbing rose called Madame Gregoire Steichlin. Now she is repeat flowering. So it's well worth deadheading all the old flowers, and that will stimulate more. So if we take a flower head that's going or gone over, and that one there is one, you can see if you touch it, the petals are all falling off. So with your secateurs, prune right back to a junction or a leaf axil and take that off. That will stimulate more growth and more flowers from below that point. And go back as far as you need to. And sometimes you have to take off a great long stem as part of deadheading. And actually the truth is, deadheading is a form of pruning. If you see it like that rather than as a form of tidying up, then there's a logic to it. I pruned my roses hard and late this year, so they're only just coming into flower, but two are looking particularly good. The Rambler Paul's Himalayan Musk has lovely compact pink flowers that thread through the hedge behind it, whilst the Gallica, Connigan von Denmark, manages to combine voluptuousness and elegance. As neither needs deadheading, all I need do is simply enjoy them. But my early flowering species roses do need some attention right now. Now this rose has completely finished flowering. It's Rosa Cantabrigiensis, which was covered with a mass of primrose yellow, single, very charming flowers. One of my favourite roses of all, actually. This year it was very early, but it's completely finished now. And actually it will be a very good time to prune it. Now, early flowering roses and species roses are like ramblers. They make their flowers on the wood that they produce in the previous summer. So all the new growth that will happen for the rest of this summer is going to provide next year's flowers. So if I prune now and there's a subsequent regrowth, that's going to have flowers. And that will help me control where the flowers are on the bush. If I leave it, it'll grow quite happily, but the flowers will just get higher and higher and the base will get barer and barer. It's quite a good idea to just rejuvenate part of the shrub every year. And that way we get a decent spread between height and also new growth coming from the base. And also we can clear the tangle a bit. You can see it's getting a bit crossed, the wood's getting old, and we can give it a fresh start at the base. That comes out. I'd like to get this here done, partly because it's crowded and tangled, and it's old wood, and you can see that it's lost its shape, and it is producing perfectly healthy growth at the top, but because I want to get new growth coming from the base, you take the oldest first. So this will go. There we go. Now it's all the same, whether it's radical pruning like that or just deadheading. It's all pruning so roses look as good as possible this year and prepare them for looking magnificent next year. Now, as well as looking after my roses, I've got a number of other jobs that I want to get done before I go to the show. Now high summer is nearly here, do remember to give your containers a regular watering, even if it's been raining. And it's also a good idea to feed them regularly too. And I'm giving my citrus and pelargoniums liquid seaweed as a foliar feed. However, don't be tempted to feed lavender plants. That will just encourage soft, sappy growth with all sorts of problems as a result. Just give them a regular water, treat them rough, and they'll look beautiful. One stunning plant that you'll see in flower in garden centres now is agapanthus. And it's great to see the colour of the bulb that you're getting. Agapanthus flower best when their roots are tightly constricted. But even they need repotting from time to time. They need good drainage, so mix a peat-free compost 50-50 with grit. Really pack them into the container. And if you do have to divide them, which is a good idea to do every 4 or 5 years, put them in a pot just the next size up. Oh, there's a lovely bee. It's come by my nose. See, that likes it. Put them in a pot just a little bit bigger, and don't be worried if they don't flower the next year. They may take a year or two to get sufficiently constricted again. If you're growing chili plants, move them to the hottest spot you've got, because they do like harsh conditions. I use terracotta pots, partly because they look good, but also because they're porous, so there's less risk of the plants getting waterlogged. And don't put them in too big a pot, as you want the plants to grow under a little bit of stress, as that way they don't produce too much foliage, but lots of fruit, and use a free-draining compost. A little tip about chilies and peppers is never to water them after 4 in the afternoon. That way they go to bed dry, and that reduces the risk of any fungal infection. Okay, it's showtime. I'll get dressed, get cleaned up, ready to go to the show. And I must gather some plants to take with me. I've got a few tomatoes here, but I want to bring other bits and pieces too for the bring and buy stall. Nigel? No, you've got to wait here. You wait there. See you later. Good boy. No, wait there. Good boy. Hello, you two. How are you doing? How's it going?
Good.
Yeah, I'm really
Lovely
fine.
to see you.
Now, I've just got here, dumped my plants. I haven't really seen anything at all. You two been here for
We've been here for
ages.
days.
Yeah.
Weeks.
And the show garden's excellent.
Really?
Good things to see.
I haven't been outdoors. I've been in the floral marquee mainly, and the standard is very high.
Is it? I'm just itching to
I think
get in
Carol
there.
just
for a
might want to
change.
go in there, yeah. And did you bring any plants? Because we've bought plants with us for the bring and buy.
I bought a plant on the train. It wasn't easy, but I bought some cash.
train.
I bought some cash as well. So.
Oh, good.
Fine,
So you
good.
can
So
buy
we'll do
plenty and
ours,
take even more home. But people are here already, and they're carrying all sorts of interesting-looking bags. So let's join them. That's fantastic. It's clematis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. How many have you brought?
Just got about 4.
You're taking them to our stand?
Yeah, of
What
course
are you
I will.
looking out for?
Perennial foxgloves.
That is lovely. Do you know what it is?
I don't.
You don't.
You can educate
I can
me.
tell you it's an astrantia, but did you not know when you bought it? Did you
My
just
wife
fall in love
did.
with
My
it?
wife did.
I did. So long as one of you knows, that's all that matters. It's a beautiful one, isn't it?
So you've bought these for the bring and buy?
I have, yes. I bought a few auriculas a couple of years ago, and now I've got about 40.
Big streptococcus that needs dividing, but I didn't have time
Needs
to.
dividing, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
You could make several out of that. So is this for a bring and buy?
This is for the bring and buy.
Yeah. And what are you looking out for?
Well, I don't know. Inspiration.
Gardeners World Live, you can bet your life you're going to find something
there
outside.
you didn't know you needed.
Fantastic.
Now, the place is filling up fast. People are pouring in, and so before it gets too full, I want to have a look around myself, and there's one garden in particular that I want to see. Now, this is a show garden called the Spirit of Longmeadow. It's the first time that I've seen it, and I have to say, it's quite an odd thing. It's like catching sight of yourself on the corner of the street, and you do a double take and say, yeah, I know that person. Well, I know this garden. It's awfully like the one that I've got back at home. And yet there's no one bit of it that is exactly the same, but it has absolutely caught the basic essentials of Longmeadow. And of course, it's quite simple. It is formal structure. So you've got the paths, just like we've got, and the mixture of stone and brick, and then the hornbeam hedges and the limes behind. I say they're cracking limes, much better than my own back in the garden. And in amongst that formal structure, you've got planting that is allowed to just go free. So you've got vegetables mixed in with annuals, with grasses, with perennials, we've got bulbs, all working at once. Things like this geranium and folkard just running through, sprawling and climbing with those incredible magenta flowers. And the chocolate cosmos, I'd say they got one ahead of us on that because ours hasn't yet flowered back at home. And as well as plants from the jewel garden, we've got hostas from the damp garden. We've got the hazel wigwams, very typical. We use them in the vegetable garden, we use them in the flower gardens, and they add a kind of wonkiness that I like very much indeed. Now, a lot of these plants you'll be able to buy at the show, and some of them will be at the bring and buy stall. So bring some plants along, and then you can exchange them perhaps for a piece of Longmeadow. But come anyway. Come and see all the gardens and get a glimpse into Longmeadow, but here at the show.
outside gardens are absolutely packed with plants, but for me it's in the floral marquee where you can see plants in their full glory. And this year there are some particularly exciting combinations of plants. It's wonderful. Blue and yellow is a really classic colour combination, but on this stand it's used in a really refreshing and different kind of way. You've got this wonderful combination of plants, different textures, different sizes, and they're all mingling together. So you come up from this glorious Cerinthe with these dark blue bracts into this Achium, a native plant this, Viper's bugloss. And isn't it just so exquisite with this lovely Aquilegia chrysantha with those great long spurs? And you feel as though everything's jostling together, but they're all doing it happily. They're all vying with each other for your attention. But over here, how about this for attention catching? Here, the whole idea is contrast. These big black poppies, peony flowered poppies, contrast so beautifully with this glorious salvia. Look at those bracts. And all layer makes this sort of carpet underneath there from which arise these great big black hollyhocks. It's really dramatic. It's a real contrast. The combinations on this stand are very refined. I think it's exquisite. You've come down from this glorious Acer, classic plant with these big dark leaves, into this Libertia. What an unusual one it is too. Normally they have green stems, but here they're dark and they make this lovely contrast with those white 3-petal flowers. And then across the little path to this, what can you call it? Ethereal plant, Gilenia trifoliata. It's a North American woodlander and it adores a shady sort of site. And then flowing through this lovely soft line of Gilenia is a plant that you could never describe as being a fairy-like plant. It's a bit of a thug really. It's Lysimachia ciliata firecracker. It ramps and rambles all over the show. But the brilliant thing is how two such different plants can emphasise the quality of their partner. Combining plants isn't just about the way they look. It's about the way they feel, their texture, and the wonderful scents that they emit. As you wander along this stand with this wonderful melee of beautiful herbs, you could almost be on some Mediterranean slope, just drinking in those aromas. It's easy enough buying plants, but the magic really begins when you get them home and start putting them together. This is just such a wonderful arrangement with these flat heads of Achillea and these spikes of the purple salvia. The whole thing goes together so wonderfully well. But what really makes it special, what it's really set off by, is this lovely scintillating dahlia. That's what you call a really bold statement. But you're not always dependent on scent or colour for combinations. Occasionally you can do something with just one colour. Gertrude Jekyll said that green is also a colour, and this stand really proves that. Look at these marvellous differences in texture. Glorious leaves on this lovely Euphorbia pasturii. How about this? Really prickly, offensive. It's quite sort of violent, this plant. It's a solanum. It's a relative of tomatoes and potatoes, and the shiny texture of this glorious Pittosporum there. And the whole ground floor of this stand is just decked with ferns and impatiens, all manner of plants. And when your eye's finally taken up underneath these enormous paddle-shaped leaves of the banana, you realise it's also all about scale. And whatever it is that excites you about the relationship between plants, whether it's their colour their scent or their scale. You'll find so many brilliant examples of all of them here in the Floral Marquee.
Well, Rachel, you saw the show gardens when they were putting their finishing touches to them. Have they changed much?
Yeah, I was here yesterday, and it's so interesting as well to see how now they're all looking pristine and perfect, and the judging, of course, who got what. Yeah. And this got a gold, which is fantastic.
It did get a gold. Tony Smith, he's got a raft of gold medals over the years. He gets a narrative, and he sticks with it. He refines it down, and he ends up with these, quite amazing gardens like this. And this one's about grass and man's interpretation of the word and relationship with the word. So we've got natural grass, we've got plastic grass, and also rice in this bowl in the middle, which is a form of grass. So he really follows that narrative through, which is what I like about his work. It's very
good. And there are ideas you could take home as well. I mean, this idea of digging down, having a lower level, I really like. I think that would work. And the quality of the build is just fantastic. It is immaculate.
Well, we better move on and go and see some more, hey? Rachel was on Yvonne Matthews' garden earlier in the week, and Yvonne is a real regular at Gardeners World Live, renowned for her zany designs and really bright colours. For me, this design's a little bit safer than her usual, but the judges obviously liked it as they gave her a silver gilt. Congratulations, Chris. Great garden. But what exactly is a bodger? In my world, a bodger means someone who bodges things up, makes a mess of things.
Absolutely not. I think you need to ask the bodger what a bodger is.
Ah, Mr. Bodger. What is a bodger?
A bodger is someone who doesn't exist anymore, really, but there used to be a group of about a dozen men who worked around the High Wycombe area making chair legs for the chair industry, for the Windsor chair industry.
Why did you want to create a garden around a whole bodger concept?
I was commissioned to come up with a show garden that was themed around a manual worker, and to be honest, a manual worker, I was quite stumped. What am I going to do? And then I was just out walking in a local wood at Bolton Abbey near where I live. I came across Richard working in the wood doing what he's doing here now, and I just saw the setting he was in, how beautiful it was, all the lovely planting, his canvas, his tools, and I thought, now this is magical. He's my kind of manual worker.
Now listen, you won gold.
Yes.
And you also won Best in Show in a Small Garden
That's
category.
correct, yeah. So.
Congratulations. Are you here all week, or are you...
Oh, no, I've got to get back to work.
I think this is one of my favourite show gardens because it's a real garden. It's partly the hard landscaping, which uses a good contrast of different materials, but not so many that the whole thing becomes a muddle. And I really love the simplicity of this pond. And then the planting, well, you've got this palette of rich purples and bright acid greens, a little bit of grey-green in there as well. That combination of shrubs, some of them evergreens, you've got grasses in there, perennials, roses. It just works on so many levels, and it won a richly deserved silver gilt medal. Well, the designer of this garden, Rebecca Gouvier, was aiming for a dreamlike quality in her garden, and I think she's succeeded brilliantly, not only in the landscaping, but in the planting, which is a wonderful palette of soft mauves and silvery foliage. It's got some unusual plants in it as well. This euphorbia, which is called white swan, you don't see very often on show gardens. And there's height here in the planting too, these lovely Stipa gigantea, which are tall, but they're airy, so you get that sense of transparency. And that height is picked up in these wonderful, rather ghostly white stems of the trees, which are reflected in the shadows on the wall. Now, the garden won a silver medal for Rebecca, which is absolutely a result because this is her first time showing a garden here at Gardeners World Live. I loved this garden so much when I saw it yesterday, and I'm delighted that it won a gold medal and Best in Show. But do you think the visitors are going to be slightly confused by why this type of garden has won that accolade?
Yes, possibly, but it's because this is so realistic. I feel like I'm back being a cub and a scout at my scout camp. You know, it all feels so authentic here, and that is hard to achieve with wildflowers and this bivouac. I think it's the execution of this garden that's really won it. gold and best in show.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm impressed by the show gardens this year, and I think that kind of range, you know, from the conceptual to this, fantastic. It's got something for everyone.
Yeah. You may remember that earlier I was chatting to a few of the exhibitors in the floral marquee as they put their finishing touches to their stands. Well, the judges have spoken and awarded the medals in there, and I'm thrilled to say that Cass Garden Plants got a gold and best exhibit. All that hard work clearly paid off. Birmingham City Council will be delighted as they were awarded a gold, an improvement on their performance at Chelsea, and Ian, with his brugmansias, got a silver. Fantastic.
Trust the job. So what do you think is fair for them?
I think I better change the blue one for a brown one, don't you?
Well, that'd be very, very generous of you.
Lovely, thanks, Carol.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Right, anyone bringing me some plants?
Was Datura and Rebecca Cherry Brandy.
Fantastic. Really good. And you've grown these from
seed, yeah.
From seed yourself. Because they take terribly easily from cuttings. Much easier than growing from seed. Right, well that's fantastic and generous.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to do is find a plant, then give me lots of money for children in need, and go away a happy man.
That's great.
Can I give you that one?
Yeah, it's fabulous. What a well-grown plant. It's a panicetum, isn't it?
Yes, it's one I bought last year, and I decided that I would save the seed.
Yeah.
So I gave it a go this year, and I've got 4 plants actually, so I'm really, really pleased.
Brilliant. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's only an annual, but you can save your seed.
Exactly. I didn't want to lose it because it was so pretty.
What do you think of this with this lovely orange geo?
Those colours are gorgeous together, aren't they? They really are beautiful.
And do you know what? That goes wonderfully with your jumper, doesn't it? Just a job.
So you brought lots of gifts.
Yes, I have.
And have you raised all these yourself?
Yes, this one especially.
Why especially?
Because I bought that last year from this store.
A plant you got last year, you were taking cuttings from and spread on this year. That's fantastic.
Good.
So what are you looking for? What do you want?
Well, I don't know, just something different.
Well, I've got here these. This is a Salvia Garanetica. This is a cutting.
Yeah.
I took April, March. Okay. It will grow into quite a substantial shrub with incredible blue flowers.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, I've got some plants. And those...
Fantastic selection.
Yeah, those are Tresco seed.
Geranium madurense.
Madurense.
Yeah.
And
so it's a geranium that will die after it's flowered, but it's gigantic.
It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And your coleus, I'm very impressed because they're really quite difficult to...
Well, I found that they are difficult. I lost a few. And
Are they
I don't
from
know
seed?
why. No, they were tiny little
cuttings.
plants, yes.
Well, thank you very much for those.
Okay, thank you.
They're going to get snapped up. Are you not going to buy anything?
Well, I was looking at a plant over on the back there.
Yeah, what was it?
The Achillea, the dark red one.
Oh, right, let's have a look.
Yeah, we've got...
I'm one of those horrible people who cuts my plants and uses them in flower arranging, and that's a gorgeous colour.
It is a really beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful colour. So what do you think would be a fair contribution for this?
Oh, I'll give you a £5 for it.
That's brilliant.
Is that all right?
£5 is absolutely wonderful.
Thank you very much indeed. That's fantastic. Now, I realise I could be here all day because people are coming and going the whole time. But it does drum home the fact that there are plants I've got to get for Longmeadow. And to choose the right ones, I need to do it not here, but go to the floral marquee. Although, in fact, I'd be perfectly happy just to browse around the floral marquee, I've come with a purpose. There are 4 beds below the jewel garden, and they need planting up. And what we want to try and create is an atmosphere where the jewel garden just drifts away to the edge, so it becomes looser and more blousy. And those are the plants that I'm looking for. Now this tobacco plant, Nicotiana Lansdorffii, feels exactly right for that piece of the garden. And when you're choosing plants, listen to your gut. But if the plant just feels as though it's going to be the right thing in the right place, it almost certainly will. And the small flowers, the way that it tangles in through the cornflowers, it's tall, exactly that feeling of looseness, abandon, and yet beauty, all coming together. The right plant in the right place. I think this is lovely, and it's exactly the feel and the kind of plants that I want for those bottom beds. They're tall, elegant, and also these small flowers are borne on quite strong stems so that they can mingle without crowding each other out. And I think if you're trying to create a gentle drifting look, it's important not to get too cluttered. So you need plants that have height and elegance. And I really like this Cephalaria. That will work beautifully. I've got the Cirsium rivulari. I'm going to get some grasses, but that Cephalaria is going on my shopping list. Do you have any of the Cephalaria gigantea?
Yes, I do, yes.
Good. As big as the show plants?
They will be, Monty.
Can I have 3?
Yes, no problem. I've got 3. Yeah, they're £6.50 each, so that will be.
Right, that's 20 quid. That will cover it. The full 3.
Well done. 50 pence change.
Thank you very much indeed. See, these grasses look fantastic and exactly the right thing. And what I like about grasses in a border is if you choose the right ones, they provide this sort of sifting feel. You can see through them. I've got quite a few already, but this steeper Calamagrostis is perfect. I want some of those. And I can put them nearer the front of the border, and then behind them and above them and through them I can have more colour. And there's a grass here that I have grown before, but we haven't got at Longmeadow at the moment. This is Calamagrostis Carl Forster. It's almost the perfect grass because it will grow almost anywhere, whereas the steeper needs plenty of drainage and sunshine. This is very adaptable. It'll grow really tall, and I love this layered sensation that your eye drifts through them, it dodges past them, they move in the wind. You get that lovely sense of lightness of touch from grasses, so I'll definitely get some of these. 3 Carl Forsters, and then the 3 Steepers Calamagrostis. That's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Right. Although I'd love to buy masses more, I can't carry any more. So I think the thing to do is get back to Longmeadow and get them in the ground.
Well, Monty's not the only one on the lookout for a good plant because there's lots of shopping going on here in the Bring and Buy, and Joe's on his own. I'm going to go and give him a hand. Help yourself. Oh, very impressed. Well done.
Thank you.
Right, any takers? This is my tomato plant grown from seed. It's a heritage tomato. Are you interested?
Well,
fantastic. Do you know it's got a very funny name? It's called striped stuffer. It's quite a funny name for tomatoes because it's a little bit stripy and it's very good for cooking. So you get mummy or daddy to cook it for you, stuff it with something and cook it. So there we go, that's for you.
Brilliant.
Help yourself.
Are you bringing a plant?
I am, yes. So it's digitalis, but I didn't get time to put a label on it. It's got it's on the train.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Digitalis.
Very nice.
And are you buying a plant? So I've just bought my plant up here. It came on the train with me. The Cena Blue Haze. It's a fantastic. Well, you would have seen it all over Chelsea this year. Cleve West used it in his garden.
Where does that
This is right from my garden. I've loved it. I've nurtured it. I've potted it on.
Where does it like to grow?
Sun, really well drained soil.
Okay.
Like
Are you buying Joe's plants?
It's it's a real low spreader.
I think I probably. He's a good salesman, isn't he? He drives a hard bargain.
I think 5. Lovely. Then it's nice.
That's a bit snazzy, that one.
That's nice.
Violas.
Are you bringing that?
I am, yes.
Oh, that's very lovely. Thank you very much.
Got my name on it.
That's got your name on it. Let's put a plant. Do you know what pink it is?
No,
just a general pink?
it's well over 50 years old, the parent plant. Yes, it was growing in my mother-in-law's garden when I was 16. I met my future husband, and I've kept one plant growing for a long time, but it suddenly looked a little bit ill last year. So I took some cuttings, and that's one.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
What colour are the flowers?
They're white double with serrated edges, and they've got purple splodges on them.
So is there anything you're interested in buying?
How much is that?
For about 50 quid? No, I'm joking.
I'm glad. I'll give you that. That'll be all right.
Stick it in the bucket.
There are endless retail opportunities at Gardeners World Live. Hello, can I just ask you about your roses?
You certainly can.
Are they all the same variety?
These I've got hold of are Bonica,
It's
as I'm sure you know.
No, I didn't. I think it's a lovely rose.
We've got a
standard to go with it. Right.
Two standard.
So you're having your standard in the middle and these all around the edge?
Yes.
Very beautiful.
Can I ask you about my rhubarb?
Oh yes, certainly.
When it first comes up after the winter, it's really nice, and I cut it ready for the pies and the crumble. And then it doesn't really do much after that. They're really thin and spindly.
Oh, next winter, dig it up, chop it in great big chunks, and they've got deep roots, you know, but even a big piece of the base of the plant will grow again. And what have you got?
It's not just these. I've bought loads and loads of vegetable seeds. I pretty much do just vegetables.
Right.
And I've got peas for flowers, and that covers the flowers. And
that's beautiful. That's a lovely idea. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? I can smell it from here. And what's she called?
Gertrude.
Beautiful rose. It's one of these modern roses with that old-fashioned look, isn't it? Yeah. Do you realise how well your plants go with your jacket?
I didn't, but hope they survived the trolley. I've got to get on the train, and they're going all the way down to Sussex, so I hope they're going to make it.
Hello.
We're from St Thomas More School, and we have our own allotment.
Do you?
We've got like a garden, and we've got like wood patches so I can plant stuff.
Is this your first year doing that?
No, we've been doing it for 4 years.
Have you? Oh, you're experts. Oh, what's that? That's a picture. Oh, look, it says Monty Don. That's me. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put this up in the potting shed at Longmeadow. So then when I see it, it will inspire me to grow better vegetables, because I'll know you're doing it on your allotment. Well, that's all we've got time for tonight. I've had a fantastic time at the show, done my shopping. I shall take these back to Longmeadow and get them into the ground. If you can, do come along. The show is on till Sunday night. Masses to see, masses to buy, and you can see a little bit of Longmeadow when you come. We're off air for a few weeks, but we'll be back for a full hour-long programme on July the 8th. So have a good time in the garden till then, and I'll see you at Longmeadow in 3 weeks' time. Bye-bye.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Bye.
It's crazy.